Hello, guys. This is Jerry speaking. Welcome to LJPCBM Reacts, episode 503. And today I'll be reacting to Purple Roads, episode number 24. Katherine, Pully from Beth with Barney and Friends. And I'm going to react to this beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads.
Hello, Purple Roads fans. Welcome to another episode. I am so excited today. I have Katherine Pully, who played Beth on season 700 and 800. She was one of the kids that was with me, and this is just so special. And Katherine, it's been a long time. I am thrilled you're here. How are you?
I'm good. It's so great to see you. I'm excited to be here.
Wow.
I'm really good. It's crazy because it was so long ago, but in some ways, it really doesn't seem like that long ago. I remember everything.
It's the part I love so much about doing these and talking with Barney people is it's like I talked to you yesterday. Even though you're obviously a lot more grown up than the last time I saw you, but the memories are there.
Yes.
And you know, we all work together so much. I think it's just so special when we can do these things.
Wow.
So we'll get, obviously everyone wants to hear about all the Barney stuff. I'm going to kind of go backwards or forward a little bit. And what have you been doing since Barney?
Yeah, so I mean, before Barney, I wasn't acting at all, and after Barney, I didn't act at all. It was kind of a blip, but it was just a really cool experience. But
Wow.
afterwards, I continued to just go back to school. I went to college, and I'm actually still in school. I'm now living in New York. I'm a grad student, so I'm about to
Wow.
finish up my last bit of school ever, finally. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, it's just funny because I had this whole like whirlwind acting thing, and then after that, I kind of just returned to regular life and have been doing that since.
What have you been studying?
I study computer science, so I'm getting my master's now. And yeah, graduating at the end of the summer. It's a lot of work, so I'm really ready to
Wow.
finish up and like start working.
So that it's an interesting point. So you just did acting once, and that was something you just wanted to do, or was it a desire, or how did you step into all that?
Yeah. Well, so I had a moment when I was maybe 9, and I think I was in a school play, and I really enjoyed it. And so I thought would be fun to try out acting classes. So I
Yeah.
I did do an acting class, just it was something in Dallas. It wasn't really like film oriented necessarily, but they just so happened to have an open casting call for Barney one of the days that I was taking the class. And it's such a funny story because my parents didn't know, neither did I. We didn't know anything about anything really in this world. But I had always begged to have a surprise birthday party. And so my parents, it was right around my birthday when I auditioned, and they needed me out of the house. So they had gotten this notice from the acting class that I was joined to for the summer. Oh, we have an open casting call. And we didn't know what that was, but we're like, okay, that would be perfect. We'll get her out of the house for a couple of hours and then, never hear from again.
Right.
I guess they had been casting not with open casting calls before that, and maybe they were still looking for a couple people. I don't know how many more people they were looking for, but um, I just went in, and I think the first audition that I did, it was a little bit long, so there were like multiple rooms, and the way that I read it later was maybe depending on if you were a good fit, you continued on, so it could have been shorter or longer.
Right.
So that's just to say, like the next day, there was an article in the paper about the auditions, and I had relayed to my parents, like, oh, I went to this room, I went to this room, and they were reading, and it basically said something along those lines, like
Wow.
kids who moved on went to multiple rooms, so they were kind of scratching their head, like, oh, maybe she will get a call back, like, because she seemed to have gone to like both rooms.
Right.
And I think that worried them. I was very excited, but I think we were worried because we were like, what are we getting ourselves into? So I mean, that's really how it started, and I think there were a few callbacks, but it was also exciting that there was no way we were going to say no. But we were sort of navigating it blind. No real experience with it, learning as we went.
Did you understand how big Barney was at that time?
I did. I mean, as a young child, I had loved it, so I thought it was so cool. So I definitely knew what it was, and by the time that I was on it, I mean, it was pretty late in the game.
Wow.
Well, not late in the game, but 700. So there had been 6 seasons before mine.
Right, but this
Wow.
was as you were. And sorry to interrupt you. You know, I was on tour at that point, and so they had. If you didn't know all this, they had stopped the production, and so they were getting ready. This was a big relaunch, is what they were doing.
Okay.
With
I think
this.
I knew that. Yeah, I think so. I guess when I was maybe in the age where you watch Barney, I mean, I have pictures of myself like with Barney themed birthdays, so I definitely knew what it was. I loved it, and that's why I definitely thought it was really cool because I knew what I was auditioning for.
And then did you realize? Okay, so you're auditioning, but did you ever think, well, what if I get it? Like, now I've got to act.
No, I mean, not at all. I didn't think I would get it, and I mean, my parents are confident in me, but they didn't think I would get it either. I think every callback it was just like, well, I guess we'll go again. I mean, why not?
Right.
Until the last call, and it was funny because I initially auditioned on my for my when I was having a birthday party, but I guess I'd had that early because the day that I got the call that I got the role was my actual birthday, so it was like a really fun birthday present. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know, and I also didn't know. Not only did I not necessarily think I was going to get it, but I also didn't know what getting the role would mean. Like, I didn't really know what it would look like because I hadn't been around any type of filming before.
Right.
So it was a sort of a black box when I went into it.
Wow.
You know, and it's interesting. I don't think people realize how big of a production it was. You know, with the 3 different studios and all the in that studio, all the editing was everything was there. So it was a lot of people.
Wow.
Was that overwhelming to you with everyone and everything involved?
Yes, although one cool thing about me, like my experience, and this was the same for, I guess, the only other person that had this who went on to do 700 and 800 was Michaela. But we started in a video. So before we even started Series 700, we filmed the Christmas video.
You took my memory. So you were in the Christmas video, the Christmas Star.
Yeah.
Which was my first video.
And so that was in, well, at least I think 2/3 of it was in Las Colinas.
Yes.
The old studio. So we kind of got to come in even before we met all the other kids. It was interesting. I think we did the video and then the real like season started. So we got to A, see the old studio, but B, kind of, I felt like it was a nice introduction. We got to know everyone before we went into like the regular season filming. And that studio was so cool. I remember they have all these props. I guess they film a lot of stuff there, so they have all these props from like different movies. I remember they had like a huge just chair. It was for some movie where they shrunk people, or I don't know. So we always try to climb up on the chair and stuff. But I think that it was a good introduction because well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they did, that was the big set, but I don't know if they did all the stuff there. Is that just the set?
I think we did most of it there. Maybe not the whole, but we did most of it. Was that, you know, I remember that being a very big production.
Yeah.
Was it weird for you being, you know, it was filmed in August and September and it was hot and we were in thick snow and...
That's what I was going to say. That was my favorite part about it, is there was all this fake snow. And it looked really realistic. I think it was a mixture of things, but one of the things that it was like ripped up plastic bags, so it was really light and fluffy. And I would always leave the set with like all that stuff in my shoes. And in between takes, we were always kind of messing with it, and I think then we'd kind of get in trouble because we were just playing with it. But yeah, I mean, I actually that probably was the most involved set ultimately that I had because it was transformed into winter, and it was August when we were filming. Um, but another cool thing about that I think was because we must have started in August. I don't know that we had school then, so we got like an introduction to filming before we had to do school in Barney, and that was kind of nice.
So it's really interesting. I did not realize you were in that video, and
You did?
I did not realize that, and
Mm.
that's such an interesting story. I don't know if you realize that that was also when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
It was,
And I've talked about this a lot on this show because
mhm.
I found out about it before you all did because I was done early that day, and they said, don't tell the kids. We want to let their parents tell them, and all of that. I'm very curious your experience and what you remember of that.
Yeah. It's interesting that you asked that. I was wondering if you were going to it. It's a very vivid memory because I was actually, so I guess for those who don't know, you go in the morning, you get dressed, and you also get makeup. It's not heavy makeup, but because the lights make you pale, you need all this like foundation.
Right.
So I was getting my makeup done with Miss Jeannie, and she had received a call, and I want to say it was from her husband, because he was at the airport, and so she sounded worried. And Miss Jeannie's always like so happy, so we would
Right.
always talk and banter. And she got on the phone for a little, and but she was still in the room, and she sounded worried. So when she hung up, and I knew she'd said something about a plane. I was like, "What's going on?" And she said, which was the right thing to do, but she said like a plane crashed, but no one was hurt. Which in my mind, I mean, I was like 9, so I don't know how I could really today hear like a plane crash and no one was hurt. That doesn't make sense. But at the time, I accepted it. I was like, oh, okay, so it's not a huge deal, but like something has happened. Um, that was my first indication that something was off, and then she was very professional because then she I think that must have been when the first one hit, so there was still a lot to come, but she knew, but she just kept working, and like she didn't let the kids know.
Right.
And everyone did a really good job of not seeming super stressed out. But I do remember progressively throughout the day, and I think we ended early that day. I remember
Wow.
people coming in and out of like, maybe we were filming and people whispering. There were a lot of whispers, and I remember that. And then we went home kind of early, but I'll always remember overhearing Miss Jeannie. And the other thing I remember somehow like profoundly is the next day, I think we were back filming and we had a moment of silence. And I think just as the kids, like we always had these sound checks. Sometimes I guess I don't really know what it did, but we would have to be dead silent for a minute.
Right.
We all really had trouble. I know I had trouble keeping a straight face whenever we were told to be silent. I was always cracking up. I feel like I was a big like jokester, and so when we had this moment of silence, it wasn't an audio check, but it like felt like an audio check, and I kind of remember stifling giggles. And looking back on it, it just seems very inappropriate, but also just we just didn't really understand what was going on.
Yeah.
But I do have to say I've always thought that everyone did an amazing job of protecting us. I mean, not only in that moment, also throughout the whole filming, but in that particular instance, people really thought about how to tell us or what to tell us. They were careful about it. So yeah, that's a huge memory for me because all the rest of my friends were in school, and so they have their own memories of that, and then I have my experience with that.
Wow.
Do you remember when we had the moment of silence when we
Yeah.
came back?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I've talked about that for a lot because I was in the suit.
Yeah. What was it like for you?
It was very surreal. Like I said, they immediately came to all of us and said, "Don't tell the kids." So we all, they were on top of that from the beginning because they wanted your parents to handle it the way that your parents wanted to handle it, which we all knew that was appropriate.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was very surreal. Here I am in the happy, Barney that everyone loves, and then you're having this moment. And I think I felt a responsibility for the rest of that. Like I knew we needed to laugh and love and good, and so I think that video, which I've talked about before, I think there was probably an extra level of the importance of what we were doing. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting because it was right about we were getting ready for the series and all this new, and so everyone's very excited about that. And then here, the world change, which is crazy as we're going through that right now. As you're sitting at your house and I'm sitting in my house.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that Barney's brought us back together once again.
Me too. Me too. I'm so happy. But yeah, I do have to say, in everything, but that moment in particular,
Wow.
everyone was so thoughtful about the kids.
Exactly.
And that was sort of something I felt all the way through.
So we go to PBS. We move to Carrollton.
Yeah.
We go to PBS, and you've got to remember when we had Barney Camp. When we all got together and you got to meet. Now you'd already met us, right?
Yeah. I felt like an old pro, I think.
So you already knew, obviously that we were in the costumes, and you had seen the costumes, and you had dealt with all that.
Yeah.
Which makes this even more interesting. What was that experience for you, and did you feel like you kind of needed to help the other kids, that it was a completely new experience for them?
Yeah, I think, no, it's funny because so many of my memories are so vivid, but I can't remember Barney Camp all that well. I mean, I do remember coming in with Michaela and kind of feeling like, oh, we know what's going on.
Right.
But I guess the set was still brand new for us. We had never seen the caboose set. And so that was all new. I remember it being really fun to meet the rest of the kids because I think the other two boys who did the video with us were, for whatever reason, not able to film. I think maybe they had problems with the school cooperating or something like that. So we didn't have them. So we were really excited to meet the other kids that were coming in. And to see the new set, because I think we'd been talking about it when we were in Las Colinas, like Jim talking about the new set and how cool it was going to be. But other than that, I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember Barney Camp all that well. Yeah.
Well,
just being a set.
If you don't, what Barney Camp is we kind of prepare you all. So we would do a dance. You would see us out of costume. You would see us in costume. They usually let the kids get in the costume. We prepared you because I'm swinging a tail and big old hips, and so if you get bumped, try not to blow a line and all of that. And then so much dancing in Barney, getting used to that aspect of these big dinosaurs moving as much as we were moving.
Yeah, for sure. It was you had to watch out for it. Yeah. And
did you remember getting in the suit? Did you try to get in the suit?
I don't think I did. I remember the suit being very hot because I remember heat just like emanating from it. Even when we touched your hand, like when we did I Love You and stuff.
Right.
I remember like it was just so hot. And I can't imagine what it was actually like for you because we could feel it.
Right. Interesting.
I don't know if I don't think I got in the suit. I definitely tried on as many costumes as possible because I always ask wardrobe to allow me to like put on the costumes, but I don't think I got in the actual suit.
Excuse me.
It was heavy. I mean, it looks heavy.
Wow.
It was. Yeah, it was. So we get to production. What was? I guess I'll start off with what was your favorite parts about production?
My favorite parts about production, and it's funny, but it's probably exactly why I didn't necessarily continue acting. My favorite parts about production were all the parts not filming. But there were a lot of them. Like I loved wardrobe and like always like trying on costumes. I loved hanging out like in the makeup room. I loved the kids, and we would get breaks every so often, and we would just get to play because a bunch of the props that were from older episodes we just got to play with, and so I loved playing around on set. Like, in between takes was so fun because the sets were so intricate and fully built out and just really fun to play on. So we would, run around them. And then the actual acting part and the actual filming, I don't think that was like my favorite part because
Wow.
I don't think I was really ever an actor at heart. But all the interactions in between, I had so much fun. Um, and also interacting with the grown-ups. It was such a weird experience, but really formative because we were pretty young, but we were mostly surrounded by adults who were very kind and but still it wasn't like being at school. It was a different type of experience, and I think it kind of helped us mature more quickly.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But some of the cool sets, like, I was thinking about my favorite set, and I don't know if you remember, I think it was the last episode I ever did, but it was BJ's Really Cool House.
Oh, I do remember that.
That was so cool. They had a pickle machine that worked, and running water in a shower, and a sink that worked. So it was those moments, hanging out with like the prop guys, and those moments where we got to play with the sets and
Yeah, I talk about him being that vlogs. Continue on.
run up and down the hills like that. I loved, or playing on the playground. Like, we actually got to swing, and that was my favorite part for sure.
It's so funny. I love doing this with kids from the show because the perspectives are so different. And so I love hearing the other perspective. For us, we knew we had to get the takes right because, we could go a lot. And if the kids forgot a line or something like that, did you feel pressure to get your line down or a dance step, or did you memorize it all weekend? Did you kind of wing it? I'm curious how
Yeah,
your process was.
I didn't ever really feel pressure. I remember there were certain takes, certain like dances especially, where we would have to do them again and again and again, and maybe like the 10th take, it was like, we really need to get this right because I was so tired and I just wanted to go home. But no, I would usually, so what we would get the scripts a couple weeks before, and we had like, we would film for a week, but then the Thursday, Friday before that, we would rehearse and we would do a table read. And so we had a lot of time to learn our lines, and we had already gone through them a lot. So that was never too difficult. And the scenes that we did were never too long, right? Like, I feel like the longest scenes were dance scenes. We never really had like, an extended period where we would have to like remember dialogue. And we always knew what we were shooting that day, so if we forgot, we could like look over it. I've never, and I'm still a terrible dancer, so that was a little bit hard for me, the dancing. And those could take a long time because everything had to be perfect. But I never felt pressure. If anything, I just was like, I'm exhausted. I wanna be done. But no, and everyone was kind when you messed up too. I feel like the environment, even if they were a little bit upset inside, I think there was that and that's kind of what I meant by like the adults really protected us. Like, there was sort of that mindset of don't let them see if you're frustrated with them. So I never felt if you messed up or if this person messed up that you were in trouble.
Well, and sure, there was definitely not that. It was just we were feeling the same way. All right, I've done this 10 times. I'm ready. I'm ready to move on. So you didn't want to be the one responsible.
Well, I felt the worst for you, yeah, because and even I remember like Miss Marilee would say like, guys, Carrie's in that suit. You guys got to get this right because you were in a really really hot suit, and so we were fine. Maybe we were a little tired, but you were the one like drenched in the suit and doing a dance if you had to jump or stuff. So I always felt like we better get this right with Carrie or Kyle and Jeff or BJ and Baby Bob.
Yes.
So
Wow.
yeah, we felt bad for you guys, but we were fine.
That's funny. We just actually had Jeff on the other day, and
Mhm.
and Julie. Um,
Oh yeah.
uh,
Do they stay on together?
no, they were on separate,
Okay.
and just you might see that sometime coming up. We may have them both on together. Um, Well, let's talk about that. What was it like for you to to because most people don't understand that there was a body and there was a voice,
Yes.
and obviously Dean Went was my good friend Dean Went was my voice. What was it like for you dealing with that aspect of the body and the voices being separate?
Well,
Was there anything to it?
there wasn't a lot. I mean, I had no idea coming in, so that it was just interesting. It was more of just like an interesting fact. And when I tell people who ask about the filming, oh, did you know like the body is separate from the voice? They're always very surprised.
Mhm.
But I remember that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Jeff's costume. Jeff was Baby Bop. His mouth was like more automated. So at least
I
at a
think it. Well, I was gonna say, was it BJ? I know what you're talking about with that.
maybe it could have been. I feel like it was one of them, but maybe not both.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was sort of automated so that they didn't have to move the mouth. And when the voice moves from the audio room, like their mouth moved too.
Right.
But then with you had to bite that thing, right? Like you had a bar, and whenever you were supposed to talk, so you really had to know your lines because you
Yes.
had to basically say them.
Yes.
You just weren't saying them.
Right.
That was looked really hard.
Definitely a challenge. What it did for me is I was really focused, right? Because I can't see very well, so I've got people running around that I don't want to knock over, and then I've got to be, it's the old like chewing gum, rubbing your belly, and doing this kind of thing, right? Because you're doing all those kind of things. Yeah, it was a challenge.
Well, I also remember in between takes, the voices they were all very funny. I think especially Julie.
Yes.
And they would say crazy things. And we had speakers on the set, so speakers would be close to wherever we were filming, and then they were maybe in a room down the hall. We wouldn't really see them day to day, but we would hear them all day. And so in between takes, when maybe we were relearning the dance or like getting ready to film again, they would just be like joking back and forth. They had really good banter, but some of it was above our head. I feel like they had adult senses of humor, and we were like, "Why is that funny?" But they were hilarious, and sometimes they do it in their own voice, and sometimes they do it in the dinosaur voices, and so it did like really lighten up the mood in between takes. They were just like joking around.
We've talked about this before on this show, where I did with Julie, because I don't know if you realize they also had mute buttons.
No, I
we could hear them.
Really?
Yes, because they get to the point where they'd be talking so much that the directors would get mad at them. So they installed mute buttons so they could still talk to us. So if you ever noticed one of the body dinos laughing, it was because they were cutting jokes in our head all the time.
That's so funny. I can imagine because I kind of do remember like they would be talking and talking, and then either Jeff or Fred would be like, "Okay, guys, come on, we're trying to like work or whatever."
The other aspect of this with the voice and the body being different that people would know is that you would be doing a table read with the voices.
Yeah.
And then you would go do a dance rehearsal with the bodies.
Yeah.
Because we never showed up to voice, to the table read. Bodies never did. Yeah. And obviously the voices never showed up to dance rehearsal.
Right.
So that is a different experience for you. What was that like?
Yeah, that's right. I remember Dean had a couple other voices that he did. Trying to remember. I feel like
yeah, probably did.
Say something from The Lion King, or maybe it was Donald Duck. We would always ask him to do his other voice. That was so funny. But that's right. Yeah, we would do the table read with all the actors and the voice actors, and then we would see you when we did the actual rehearsal.
Yeah.
I would say overall we definitely spent more time with you and Jeff and Kyle because you're on set most of the time.
Yeah.
And so you guys were there, and they were of course there, but they were in their recording rooms. I remember this weird story, and I hope I didn't make this up in my head, but there was a termite infection, and Dean was like talking, and then in that your room, and then all the termites came out, and he like freaked out. I remember that. Well, except
So
maybe
funny.
it's just a figment of my memory.
No, yeah, as you're saying it, you know, and I always say on this show, I did it for so long that I have forgotten a lot of things, and a lot of times when I see visuals or I hear these stories, but as you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, I think that there was some aspect of that did happen.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. Yeah.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh, that's hysterical.
It was.
When you were doing scenes,
hmm
were you conscious of? So were you thinking, I need to stay out of their way, or did you just stick to what you were doing? And if we bumped into you, we bumped into you. I mean, did you? How do you do that? Because you're right, you can't show that.
Right.
So do you just say, all right, if he bumps into me, he bumps into me, or do you keep an eye on me the whole time?
We definitely. I mean, if you really think about it, I guess a lot of the dances, it was a little more rare to be right in your vicinity, right? Like you
Right.
were there, but um, I feel like a lot of the dances we did, we were interacting, like touching the children more. If we were like clapping hands or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
The moments when we were around you, yes, we were very careful and way more, I think, for y'all's sake. I mean, we were just worried. Again, like you guys had a way harder job. We were just in our regular plain clothes. I mean, they weren't our clothes, but they were just children's clothes, so it wasn't too hard. But I feel like there were moments when you guys would sort of dance on the side, and then we would sort of dance over here. So it wasn't always like we were always gonna run into each other, but we definitely were very mindful of it, and we would have to
Yeah.
concentrate on not, running over into your tail, like you said, because the tail was really heavy. If you did get hit by the tail, you would fall down.
Right.
It looked light, but it was heavy.
Right.
And also, I think, I think I maybe had more scenes. I remember doing like a game with Jeff, so with Baby Bop.
Yeah.
And I did always feel like I had to get it right because for him it was harder. He had to see. I remember him not always being able to see. Now that we talk about the eyes, like he did see through the eyes, but I mean, if his head sort of like got tilted down and all in the jumping,
Right.
it would be hard to like readjust it himself. And so if we were doing things where you needed hand-eye coordination, it was sort of up to us to guide them and we better not mess up, but also kind of correct for that. Like
Right.
maybe he would put his hand out and then I would match it because he just couldn't see very well. Like we could at least see.
Right.
I think there was a sneezing song that he constantly, it was keep your sneeze to yourself, and he constantly had to say like achoo, and so his head was like flopping down, and I remember that causing a lot of damage.
That caused me to react to do a review of, or there's a Barney vlog episode called Terrific Matters. Continue on.
So Katherine, I've been sitting here in my office and I'm looking at a picture of you, and so I had to go get this.
Okay.
So look what I have.
I love this picture.
Wow.
That is hanging in my room.
Yeah, that's the first cast of kids when I did the show, and it's very special to me. So have you kept up with any of them? What are your memories of that group?
Yeah, I mean, so we're all friends on social media and stuff, so I keep tabs on them, and it's always interesting to see what they're doing. I mean, obviously, a couple of them really went far with acting.
Selena and Demi. People know Selena and Demi have obviously done pretty well. And Hayden was on my other podcast, Purple Tales.
Yeah, which I reacted to, and they'll just been react to the other time. Continue on.
Right?
She is still acting.
I think I saw her in SBU, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And I think those might be the three that continue to act. I don't know that many from our cast continue to. I don't talk to them on a regular basis, but if I were to ever run into one of them, it would be kind of like you and me, like just old times. I do talk to Miss Robot, every once in a while.
And she was the teacher. We had her on Purple Tales as well.
Which I talked about recently in some of the LGBT ads last year. Continue on.
I know she was so close with all of you.
Yes, I mean, she really made the experience. I guess if you were to say, like, when I say not my favorite parts were always filming, but the things in between, that was also a big one.
Yeah.
She made the classroom so much fun. So it was just so much fun to go to school with the other kids and with her. It has been a little weird to see, maybe not weird anymore, but at first it was weird to see
Excuse me.
Selena and Demi become so famous because back then we had been, such good friends. And I was like, wow, it's the same way as if anyone that you knew got really famous. It's just weird to see them in a different context, where everybody knows them because you're like, oh, that's my friend. Like, what's going on? But then over time, it just became so normal, and now it doesn't even feel like anything. But at first, it was like, wow, this is so crazy. But we are all, almost all of us are connected on Instagram, Facebook, whatnot, and every once in a while we'll chat because we became close. It was a long time together.
Well, it's funny that you're saying that because obviously I saw Selena and Demi career explode as well. But I see them just like I see you, and back at that time, what we were doing together was so special. And my girlfriend has a 13, 15-year-old, and I found the other day when I was going through my stuff cards that you all made, Christmas and birthday cards, and one says Demi Lovato and one says Selena, and they freaked out. I'm like, but to me that's Demi, right?
Exactly.
Or it's Selena, or seeing you, Katherine, and my goodness. So it's hard to explain the relationship, but I think because we were just all in this together.
Yeah.
We were doing something, and that was very special. I'd been with Barney for 10 years at that point.
Wow.
So I knew, how important what we were doing. But this was my first time doing production, so it was very exciting for me. And then Dean was new at that time, so we were building this friendship. I had known Jeff Ayers forever, and I loved him to death. And Kyle was on tour with me. And so I think...
I didn't realize you had been for 10 years before that. I thought you were just coming in. What were you doing with them for that long?
So I did birthday parties originally, and then I was the second one, so I did the promotion. Like, if you've ever seen the famous picture of Barney in the back of the day on People magazine, that was actually me. And then I did sing-alongs all over the country for 5 years. I did Radio City Music, Radio City Live.
Which I've been. It was one of my first favorite moments with Barney at the time, with Bob West as Barney, things like that. Continue on.
I did Barney's Big Surprise and Barney's Musical Castle, so I traveled for 5 years.
Wow.
And Kyle was on those tours with me.
Wow.
So when that was all happening, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to have Kyle. I just love that guy to death. But I knew Julie and Patty going into this because I worked with them in '94. So it was kind of this mix of everything. I was still on the road when they were actually doing those auditions for the kids.
Okay.
So I was hearing the stories because I knew it's hard for people to understand how big of a deal that was.
Yeah.
Thousands of kids that auditioned
They did.
one of the roles that you got.
Yeah, it was a lot of. I mean, I just remember even in my audition, there were so many kids. It was a hot summer day in Dallas, Texas, so we were like standing outside. But yeah, I guess I didn't realize how long you've been working for them. And it's funny, how was the tour? Because when at some point you age out, so you tall, or you had, I think I was 11, and we had in my cast, there must have been maybe 11 kids. They split evenly between boys and girls, and I would say half of them we were all roughly the same age, but maybe half of us were like in the 10 range, and then the other half were like 7, 8 range. Right. So those kids, I think it was like Kayla, who was Whitney, and I don't remember if Michaela did it. Grayson,
Grayson, yeah.
So it was maybe a handful did another series or
Right.
two. But the other half of us had aged out, and I was asked to go on the tour, but at that point, because my family we really still didn't really know what was going on. It just wasn't going to work for us.
Man.
But I think you needed someone to go with you.
You
Right?
did.
And
You
I
did.
have an older sister who was starting high school, so
Wow.
it was just too logistically complicated. But I do remember that Hayden did it, and I remember when you guys came back around to Dallas, and we were going to see it, and I kind of wondered what I missed out on because it looked like so much fun.
It's an amazing experience. I did the first one, so Barney's Big Surprise in '96, and I did that for 2 years before Magical Castle. Getting to tour the world's incredible, you know.
Wow.
But you also don't come home for 9 months. And back then, I'm trying not to age myself too much, but we didn't really have the internet. We definitely didn't have smartphone. I mean, I had a pager at one point. And so when you left, you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now these days you could stay. I mean, look, you and I are sitting here in a conversation. Yeah, there was no FaceTime. There wasn't Zoom. There wasn't these things. I had a flip phone. I had a pager. Now I was so excited I had a flip phone. So I talked to my family like once a week, but I was gone. There was no social media. So no one even really knew what I was doing. I couldn't post pictures. Um, so it was incredible. But when they asked me to come do the TV show, I was like, yeah, it's time to come home. I mean, you can only do that for so long before it gets to you. I think Hayden enjoyed it, and I think you would have enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
But I think, that was always the toughest part. Well, no, losing you kids.
Oh.
You guys probably never knew how hard it was on us, right? We can't. Well, we know it was hard on you, and so we can't show it. Because we know how hard it is. We know it's coming.
Yeah.
Right? I had gone through several cats. Even on the tour, they would let them be a little bit older, but you get to know these families and the kids, and then they're gone. So it was always tough on us too. I can remember saying goodbye to you. I can remember saying goodbye to Grayson. I can remember Hayden. It was horrible because she was crying. It was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And she was going on tour, and I was so happy for her, but I wasn't going on tour, so.
Oh, so you guys weren't okay.
I did the tours beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did the tours beforehand. I don't know for Kyle, but for me, 5 years, and he'd probably say the same.
Yeah. Well, do you remember? Because the last thing that I did was a video. So Series 800 wrapped, and then we did Barney's Terrific Manners. And in that video it was me, Selena, Zach, and Michaela, and Grayson. I think it was a big.
Back to Las Colinas.
We went back to Las Colinas. That's right, and I guess it was.
Yeah, I heard about Beth Matters, your invitation from Fun. I got the DVD copy in my house. Continue on.
But we ended filming the Alice in Wonderland scene.
Yes.
Wow.
And I was the March hare, and I had a fat suit. And I remember I had like a fat suit underneath and then an outfit. And so when we had lunch or breaks, I would get like part of it taken off, but I still had the fat suit. And so I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like walking around making sure everyone saw me in my fat suit. And I don't know, I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
But I think at that time, I remember this very vividly. In that moment, I remember wrapping the video, and that was our last scene. And we were at least I was in a big costume, and I think it was sort of late in the day, and I was like kind of ready to get the scene right and just be done. And it didn't fully dawn on me, although logically I guess I knew that was the last scene that I was doing in Barney, like that was it. And really that was the last thing I did acting ever. Wow. And I think when we wrapped, I was a little bit relieved. I was like, yes, we finished the video. This is so exciting. We're done. And like, great. And I remember some of the other kids crying, and I was like, but this is so like exciting. Are we done? But it's more just because in that moment it didn't fully like hit me. This had been my life for a while, and it was just over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just interesting looking back on that moment because there was always a sense of excitement when you finally get the scene right and you're like, cut, like it's good.
Right.
But it was also, the end. But that was a fun movie because we had all those like I remember we had so many cookies and pastries around because it was Miss Vera Good, I think, was the writer of this children's banners book. So we had this whole party for her, and like that set was very cool. I really liked that set.
Okay, two things. The memories are coming all over the place here on that. Did you have a moment later where you cried when you did realize, like past? So the video's over, and you go home, and you realize that was it.
It was much later. The moment for me that's the most poignant, I think, is I and this is one of my fond memories of Selena actually is I remember we wrapped and she was crying and I was happy just to like okay, we're done, I can get out of the suit,
Right.
and Miss Pully, who was the child wrangler,
Yes.
and I actually read that she passed away, which is
She did.
It was sad. Hold on. Continue.
She was the most amazing. I mean, she was like our mom on set.
Yeah.
Comforted everyone. And I remember she was comforting, and she was really good at like giving kids what they needed. So like Selena was upset, and I was sort of like happy, and she was kind of going between us. And I was asking her like, why is she crying? And Miss Marilee said, and I always remember this because she didn't say it with a hint of sarcasm or anything. She was like, some people are sad if something good ends. And I was like, huh. And then I kind of like walked off. And then that moment, again, like she wasn't trying to be sarcastic. She was just sort of like laying it out there for me. And I don't think I realized until much later, like months, like, wow, I can't believe this piece of my life is gone. And I did cry, but it came much later for me. It didn't hit me the same way that I think it hit some other people. But it made total sense because it was a big period that was ending.
Well, and that video makes sense, and I don't know that people understand. A video takes a lot longer to record. And there's a much bigger process. There's a bigger budget, bigger set, like you're talking about wardrobe. So I understand what you were saying because there was definitely an aspect of us going, oh my, I mean, we've been rehearsals and filming, and there is a sense of accomplishment.
Like you're happy. Well, and it was also I think one of the moments that did reinforce for me that it was like that wasn't necessarily my calling. Like I could not have had more fun doing it, but I always was excited to wrap up and be like, yes, we did it, and like now we get to go play and hang out with each other. Whereas I did see definitely for some kids like their favorite part was the filming, which makes total sense, but for me, like it never was, and so that was a really clear indication that I like the experience, but not necessarily the acting part of it. I loved all the middle parts of it, and so when when the director said cut, it was like now I can goof around with my friends and I can like hang out with everyone, and that's so fun. But when you're actually filming, you have to like act, and that I didn't really want to do that.
It's interesting. Now I remember on that video that scene you're talking about being very tedious. I remember that taking a long time.
Yeah.
There were several scenes it was a big Alice in Wonderland, so there was a big table and the costumes
and a whole like dance. I had to stuff a cookie in my mouth and then spit it out. And I thought it was really fun the first time, but I think like the fifth time I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm so full. Um, but we were running around the table, and so like when we did say like yes, we got it right. I was like yes, we're done. It was so exciting. And do you remember Whitney was the cat? It was Kayla, but she was
Yes.
Whitney, and she was the cat in Alice in Wonderland. So she had the like smile. She had a
Yes.
really cool
Wow.
outfit, and she was like perched up in the tree. Um, those are cool costumes. I think Zach was the Mad Hatter,
Yes.
and Selena was Alice. She had a really pretty dress. I have some cute pictures of that. But that was a good one to end on. A good scene to end on.
Did you? I'm kidding. Now I'm thinking about all this. Was there a competition like I want to be the cat, or I want to, or was everyone happy with the roles they got, or did you all jealous of what other people were doing?
I think by that point, no. I felt like we all had. So I remember being on a lot of episodes with certain people.
And then
So
you know they did that on purpose, by the way.
I think I know what.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
I felt. Tell me if I'm wrong. I felt that. So I was on a lot of episodes with Selena. I was on a lot of episodes with Kayla.
Yeah.
And obviously, I got to know all the other kids because we overlapped because they would be in the next episode.
Right.
But for example, I wasn't on as many with Demi. I wasn't on as many with Hayden. And I always assumed, we balance each other out. So I was and always have been kind of like tomboyish and like I love sports and stuff. And so I felt like we were placed to balance each other out. And in that sense, when we were cast in roles for the skits like Alice in Wonderland, it fit our personality. Like
Right.
I loved having the fat suit. I don't know if anyone else would have. Maybe they would have. I don't know. But I was like so happy. And I think Kayla loved being the cat. Like I just think we were put together because we had different personalities, and then they kind of like went well together. That was my take on it. But is that what it was?
It's pretty close. There's an aspect that you understand now is the filming, right? So I know they would go, well, we can put Katherine in that suit, and she's not gonna complain. She's gonna, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, seriously. And so when they first put all of you together, they were watching to see which groups of kids work better, this or that, because and to be honest, with what directors, right? Some of those directors go longer than others. You know what I mean? Like Fred Holmes, we laugh about Fred all the time because I love him to death, but he does a lot of takes. He does a lot of takes, so you have to have the right cast for that, right? If you have a kid that's impatient, that's not going to work out.
Right.
And so they really grouped you all in which, you obviously with Selena and you've talked about Michaela a lot.
Yeah,
Wow.
so many of my memories are with them just because.
But you got along with it. It worked together, right? So you basically built your own teams, is what you did.
Yes, definitely. I remember it being fun. I don't remember who it was, but someone got sick last minute, and so I ended up taking their place because I was available. But it wasn't a group I was usually cast with. And I guess the total group is small enough that it was really kind of two, and it wasn't always the same, but it was often the same. But I got to go into sort of a different one, and it was just so fun because I hadn't worked with those kids as often. I would just go to school with them, and so we hadn't gotten to interact on set as much. So it was really fun subbing in because I got to like hang out with people that I never hung out with before and do a role, that since it was made for someone else, it was like a little bit different than they kind of wrote me into it, but it's like a little bit different than the type of episode that I would usually do, and that was really fun. And I think that was the one where we did the umbrella dance when it was raining. The hard time with it. I think I must have messed that one up 10 times. Another one I remember, I hope you remember this one, was we had that episode It's a Happy Day or Happy Day.
I can remember the songs coming in. What did I have?
It was the one with the robot.
Oh, I would guess
So
it.
everyone got to pick something that they wanted to do. So like some I don't know, like someone picked let's dress up as robots, someone picked let's dress up as cats. And I like fell on a part of the episode I fell.
Yeah.
last person who can like cry on command. So I remember you were in that scene, you were comforting me, and we must have done that one a million times because I kept crying during the scene. I was
Wow.
supposed to be crying, but I was laughing a lot of it. We finally got it, and I think I had something like that you can put in your eye to help
Oh
cry
yeah.
because they were not real tears. I couldn't produce real tears. I think maybe they were hoping initially that I could, but pretty soon it was clear
Mm-hmm.
I could not. And I
Well,
remember that well.
we knew you were kids, but I'd experienced it on the road, so I already knew. I mean, you know, that's a hard thing to ask a kid to do. Oh, by the way, with a big purple dinosaur, and let's be honest, all the amount of people that are watching you. I mean, was that
Yeah.
difficult for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was difficult. I mean, so you have all the people. And so what's kind of interesting, and I don't know, I guess if you haven't been on a set, you might not know, and maybe they do it different on different sets, but you have the people watching you like in person, but then
Mm-hmm.
directors and the producers are often watching a live feed in the same room but on camera, and there's multiple different shots, and I guess I mean it's because they
Yes.
need to see how it's gonna look on camera.
Yeah.
So they're in like the chairs watching it on camera, but then you also have people like Miss Shelley and Christine who help teach us the dances. They would kind of more be watching it live to help us with the dances. And then we also had like Miss Marilee and Miss Crowbutt and people who did the microphones and
Yes.
Rosita and Miss Jeannie. They were in the back. There was always like they called themselves the Peanut Gallery, and
Wow.
they had
Yuck.
a part in the back, and they would also watch it live. So I mean, at any given time, there were a ton of people watching.
Well, my dressers, all the the wranglers, and then you have all the prop department, so art department.
Yeah, and so they were all back there and watching in some way or another. It was weird. I mean, it was mostly weird. I do specifically remember that crying scene and thinking in my head, I knew it was a real close up because the camera was right there, and every time I thought about it, I just cracked up.
Wow.
And I know they were so nice because I know they were getting frustrated.
Man.
I just couldn't keep it together. But yeah, knowing people are watching you, especially when you know it's like a close up, is hard. Because at the other times you don't really know if you're going to be on camera or not. I mean, they'll do different shots,
Right.
so you could be, but you're not. They pan. You don't really know if you're fully on camera when your like face is on camera.
Right.
But when the times when I knew, those were hard for me.
And what about singing? Are you a singer?
No. It's so funny. I was going to ask you about Casey.
Yes,
how's he?
my brother. He's good. He's in Austin. My brother. A lot of people don't know that, but he did all the recording.
Yep.
All the kids and the voice actors are singing their dialogue.
Yeah, and we would go in the week before and record the songs, and then you do sing while you're filming, so it your mouth moves in the right way, but the real audio is coming from the pre-recorded song, so that it sounds very clear. But my best memory of Casey is I had like a solo. You would come in and record your solos. So I think
Right.
the chorus, there was a very good children's singing group that would handle the chorus so that it sounded great. And then when we actually had solos, it obviously sounded like our voice. So we would pre-record those. And I remember one specific solo I had that I could not get. I think it was a notes that were too high. I was never a singer. And so finally he was like, Katherine, can you just talk rhythmically? And I was like, okay. And so I got through a lot of those solos by like talking to the beat instead of singing it fully. But I also didn't have a lot. I know because Demi was an amazing singer the whole way.
Right.
There were a couple other kids that were really great, and so they would give longer singing to them, which made total sense.
Right.
I sometimes struggled with that. I think that was the part that was the hardest for me actually. But it was nice to be able to record it in advance because you could do it as many times as needed, and so there wasn't that pressure on you when you were filming.
It's interesting. See, my brother's a perfectionist, so I always am interested on what the experience was because I know that he asked a lot of people. I'm glad that.
Well, he worked with me because when I put it in, he was always nice about it, but I just remember always him saying, like, can you talk it rhythmically instead of singing it? Because I couldn't, like, hit that note. Yeah, it was hard for me. But it was fun. We always had fun going into record. He was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, Katherine, kind of to wind it up, what was your overall experience? The highs, the lows, everything. Sorry, one quick question to answer it all, but
Yeah, that's hard. But even though it wasn't something I continued to do, it was hands down like the coolest experience I've had so far. I mean, it's funny, and I think a lot of people might say this, but even though so long ago, if I hear like a keyword from a song, it's in my head. I remember, I think almost all of them, and it's I don't know. It's something that's unique. Obviously, I share it with the other kids who did it, and there's also kids in other seasons who did it. So there are a handful of us, but beyond that handful and beyond you and the rest of the cast and crew, it's just this sort of thing that we share and this experience that bonds us, and it's really cool. Yeah, it's not like anything I did today. That's for sure.
Well, when people find out, you tell people what's the reaction?
Yeah, I used to tell people more. Inevitably, people do find out. And it's interesting. One thing that called a little bit more attention to it, I think, when like Selena and Demi became more famous, they were drawing back. I think because they were on Barney together, it made it a very interesting story. So, I remember my mom, and this must have been 7 years after I was totally done with Barney. She was like, reading People magazine, and like the Barney photo was on there. She's like, oh, that's you. And I think those pictures may not have been drawn up as much if they hadn't been on it together, but because of that, it was brought up more and more. And I think that, so like my friends would see me or like pictures of me and be sort of like on the side, but I'd like be in it, and that was weird for me, and that definitely kept people interested in it. But it always comes out. I try not to say it at first, but it comes out eventually. Do you tell people?
Well, it's so funny. I didn't. For the longest time, I didn't. And then, I was telling you earlier that this podcast happened. Yeah. And I didn't know what the reaction would be. I had these two gentlemen that wanted me on to talk about my photography. And when they said, "What you used to do?" I told them, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to be on our show." And we talked about it, and these two grown men started crying.
Really?
Started crying.
Wow.
Hearing stories of Barney going to hospitals and this, and it touched them. And I realized we probably, especially what's going on these days, need to tell these stories out. I think people were interested, and I think the fact that so many people were so passionate about it, it's important for people to understand. So were we. We took this very seriously. We loved what we did. We really were a family, are a family, and it's very special to us as well.
100%. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, people always have questions like, well, they always ask me, what was Barney like? And I always tell them about you. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, we were like kind of buddies, and he was young and fun, and they'd like never believe me. But yeah, it's something that we share, but then almost everyone knows about Barney and like has some relationship with it, whether their kids watch it or they used to watch it growing up. So everyone has questions about how it was made and stuff, and it's fun to be able to share that with people, knowing that I can, I don't know, give them some insight into something that they wouldn't otherwise have any idea about.
Right.
And so that is always very fun for me.
Well, yeah, because we did something in a lot of ways different than anyone's done, with two different, a body and a voice and live kids, and because I've talked to people from Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street and all these other shows, and we all do it a little bit different. So
For sure. Well, not to mention, like, the people that I'm around usually, because I'm no longer in the acting world, like, maybe some people, their peers are filming things constantly, so they kind of know what's up. If the body and voice is different, but the rest of it, they're okay. You kind of understand, like, what goes on. You have a table read and you shoot and, like, you do all that. But a lot of the people that I'm constantly around, I mean, they don't have any idea. Why would you if you've never done it? So it's 100% foreign to them, and so it is fun to kind of it's also just fun to, like, kind of have an idea. Obviously Barney was a lot smaller, though it was big, smaller than, like, the movies that I go see, but I still feel that I have some insight into the overall process, even if it's on a smaller scale, that I wouldn't have any idea if I hadn't done that. And so it's always kind of fun. I wonder, like, how they film that, like, I remember that, how many takes did they do, kind of thing.
well, and that should tell you a lot, though, because when you say smaller, we're talking about smaller in production.
Right.
But the popularity of Barney.
Right.
I mean, I used to do performances in front of 16,000 people
Wow.
with a little backdrop and some lights. We didn't have dancers and all those kind of things, and people just loved him. So it really is unbelievable how big that character was for the production size.
100%.
I can't stop smiling. It's so good seeing you.
It's so easy too. Like, even though we haven't seen each other in so long, it feels like yesterday.
Yep.
It does, and the memories. It's just it makes me very happy.
Me too. Thank you for asking me to be on it. I'm so excited.
Absolutely, I'm so glad. So many people. You're gonna be surprised how many people can't wait to see.
I'm kind of nervous.
Katherine Pully again.
Anything like this, so I'm a little bit nervous to, like, I don't know. But anyway, that was so exciting. So it's been awesome. Thank you.
I love hearing your stories and hearing a new perspective of it. It's always fascinating to me. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on.
Of course.
And thank you, Purple Road fans. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your Purple Road. We'll see you next week.
So that was Purple Road, episode 24. Katherine, Pully, Beth, Barney friends. What do I think about this episode? It was amazing. So far, this video went to be a success. Anyways, guys, double episode for LJPCBM React, episode number 503. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one, which is going to be Purple Road, episode 25, Emma Watkins for the Wiggles. Till next time, Sue Joseph, goodbye, peace out, baby. You can't wait to be asked, guys, very soon. Till then, Jump Saint out. See ya.
Given unto me this life I'll never take for granted, and given all the time I failed to really understand it, I never sought to meet the maker of reality, the one who gave the life that which is always happening, but I tried all the time. I ask, why me? Why was I the one to see things as I do under the moonlight and the sun? Perception is the question, and the giver holds the key.